Hello and welcome back to the channel where we talk about spirituality, consciousness, and personal development, and all that good stuff. Today we're going to be learning about how to let go of that guilt that we got all up inside of us. So let's get into it. There's a lot of apprehension to let go of the guilt that we have. And that is one of the issues of this, is that it's so sticky. It's one of the most stickiest negative emotions that you can ever try to let go of. And that's why a lot of us still have so much of it from certain situations in the past where we wronged this person or did this or responded to a scenario in this way that we didn't think we should have. And we keep it with us because we think that if we let go of it, it makes us a bad person. That is one of the most harmful beliefs that we can have, and that's what we have to let go of. That's what we have to learn to let go of. That holding on to our guilt helps us be a better person. It does not. Let's talk about that. So there's really two forms of guilt. I like to break this down in my mind. Two forms of guilt: big guilt and little guilt. Big guilt is stuff we might associate with regret, situations where we did something we know we shouldn't have. And the little guilt is these little nagging things. It pops up a lot more often than the big guilt, the little guilt. I should be doing this. I'm not spending enough time with this person. I'm not reading enough. I should be watching less TV and reading more books, right? That's the little guilt that just nags, nibbles, nibbles, nibbles. That one is like the death by 1,000 tiny paper cuts sort of guilt, right? So let's deal with the big guilt first. And at the end of this video, we're going to have an exercise to let go of both of these forms of guilt whenever you are, wherever you are. So let's hop right into it. The big guilt is what our ego uses to keep us in the past. We go back and we think, I feel so bad about this situation. I shouldn't have done it, right? You ever get that feeling? Maybe you're sleeping in the middle of the night and you just remember that scenario and you go, I should have done that. Why not? You know what I'm saying? But one of the biggest realizations that we can have is to help us through this is that the past does not exist. The past is non-existent, right? You can't touch it, you can't feel it, you can't do anything with it. Even the memories that you have of the past aren't the past. They're just residual images that you have saved, right? We don't go back to pictures that we had at a party and say, this is the party. Right? No, that's a picture of the party. And furthermore, our thoughts are even less reliable than photos because our memories can change. The main thing that big guilt helps us to do is to bypass doing the work of actually becoming a better person. Whoa, let's say that again. The main thing that this big guilt helps us to do is to bypass doing the work that we need to do to actually become a better person. How is that? Well, let's talk about that. So if I feel bad about a certain scenario, let's say that I got into a fight and punched my brother-in-law in the face, and I feel really guilty about it, and I keep thinking about it, and I keep thinking about how guilty I am, I shouldn't have done that, I'm just such a bad person, and all this stuff. What we're doing is we are acknowledging the scenario, we're acknowledging that we were wrong, right? But that's all we're doing with it, right? And we keep coming back and acknowledging that we're wrong, because we know we were wrong, right? But what this does is, if I come back and think about how wrong I was and feel bad about the situation, I feel bad, right? So I know that was wrong, so I must have a moral compass, so I must be a good person because I'm feeling bad about this situation. So, I'm a good person, right? That's not gonna work. That's not going to help us ascend to the highest levels of who we know we can be. Correct way to handle these scenarios is to, when we remember that situation, right? Say, I punched my brother-in-law in the face, that was wrong. Oh, I have this guilty feeling about that. Okay, let me let go of this guilt. You can let go of it, right? The thing that will really put the nail in the coffin of ever having that guilty feeling about that again is to take action on making it right. And sometimes this will take the form of going to the person and apologizing and saying, listen, I know that was wrong of me to do, and I shouldn't have done it. I was angry, and I let my anger get the better of me, and that's something that I'm working on, and I will do my very, very, very best to not let that happen in the future anymore. Furthermore, we can investigate the reason that that happened, right? I was angry because that person triggered me, right? It's not their fault. I need to look and see why I'm triggered. What's inside of me that's triggering me, right? And why am I letting my anger out? Why am I letting my anger surface so easily, right? Why am I angry? Why am I triggered? Then you begin to work on those reasons that you're triggered and angry, right? I'm angry because they were talking about politics and they were thinking that they were right, and I just wouldn't let them be right because I know my way is right. You know, we need to let them. This is a really important point here for this specific scenario and most of them. We need to let that person be right in the way that they think that they are, right? It's like the old saying goes, would you rather be right or happy, right? We need to let these people have their free will, make their own decisions, right? And let go and just say, you know, let them do what they're gonna do. Be at peace with that. We don't have to get angry. But once we begin to work on the reasons that we get ourselves into these scenarios that make us feel a sense of guilt, then we can move through the guilt. Furthermore, we can thank those emotions inside of us, those guilty, negative emotions, and say, thank you for letting me know that this is a situation that I need to work on, and I will be doing that now. You can go. Thank you. Boom. Guilt will be gone as long as you actually do the work. If you don't do the work on making yourself better in that area, the guilt will come back. The guilty feelings will come back, because the guilty feelings aren't bad in themselves. They're just trying to tell you, hey, you have some work to do in this area, right? And if we don't do the work, these guilty feelings come back up and it's a cycle. Hey, you got some work to do. And then what happens? Do we suppress those emotions, right? If we do, they're going to come back up again, and we have a negative cycle, recurring guilty thoughts and feelings. That's how we're going to handle the big guilt. We're going to realize that the emotion is there. We're going to say, thank you for letting me know that. I will be working on that. Do the work, ask for forgiveness, and move on. I want to say a quick caveat though to this point of the big guilt. Sometimes you do someone wrong and they don't want to forgive you, or they can't forgive you. And sometimes if people want to keep you in a feeling of guilt because that makes them feel like a good person, right? In fact, there's this little snippet of this book that I want to read. It's called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. And it's really powerful, and it's talking about the idea of how we will make each other feel guilty and pull each other down. So listen to this. The degree to which we have not allowed ourselves to experience the reality of our true self is represented by our resentment toward those who have actually done so. Right? So think about those who are able to let go of their guilt. We resent their aliveness in the areas in which we feel disabled. This sobering truth is represented by the story of the man who walks along the beach and comes upon a fisherman with a pail full of crabs. He says to the fisherman, "You'd better put a cover on that pail or the crabs will get out." "Well, no," said the wise old fisherman. "There's no need for that. You see, as one crab crawls up the side of the pail to get out, the other crabs reach up and grab him and pull him back down. So there's no need for a cover." Right? So think about that. Those crabs are constantly pulling each other down. Let's continue here. As we keep letting go of our guilt, getting lighter and becoming freer, we will unfortunately see that the nature of the world is like the pail of crabs. And then the full extent of its negativity becomes apparent. When we become totally aware of the bill of goods that we have been sold, it is very likely that we will feel anger and a strong desire to become liberated from the constraints of negativity. Right? So all that's saying is that when you begin to let go of your guilt, there will be people that pop up saying, no, you feel bad about that. Remember, you did that. You're that type of person, right? So you should feel bad about that. But what you say to yourself when they tell you that is, you can even say it to them if you want to, if you can, if you've been doing the work, right? I'm actually not that person anymore. That person who I was is not who I am right now standing in front of you, right? And if these people do not want to let you let go of your guilt, right? You need to separate yourselves from them. Maybe you say, look, I've tried. I've asked for your forgiveness. You can write a note maybe too and say, I ask for your forgiveness, and I really hope that in time you can come to forgive me. But I've forgiven myself for this situation, and I'm working on being a better person, and I'm becoming a better person right now. I realize that what might need to be done here is I might need to distance myself from you, and we might need to spend some time apart. I could see how that would help you because I understand how seeing me might trigger you. And that's very thoughtful, right? You don't want you want the best for them. You don't want them to be triggered. You don't want them to, because what happens is it's always a two-way road, right? We wrong someone else, they're a sounding board for our negativity, right? If I am in complete alignment, there's nothing that you can do that will make me lash out at you. And if you get angry at me because you see I'm very aligned, I'm not going to get angry with you. I'm going to say, I'm going to just be at peace, and maybe have a way to dissolve the situation. Maybe not. Maybe we just sit through that, right? But that person has something within them that you entered into that situation together, right? It's not their fault. It's not your fault. But you entered into that situation together. And when they see you, what they did to be in that scenario with you, their victimhood, whatever it was, gets triggered within them. So sometimes we need to distance ourselves from that person so that we don't trigger that in them, right? That's the best thing that we can do a lot of times. Let's talk about the little guilt a little bit. The little guilt is not doing all the things that you think you should be doing, and I should do this and I should do that, and I'm just not getting it done and all this stuff, and right? That little annoyance here. To me, in my experience, the little guilt comes from overcommitting. We overcommit ourselves to these things that we want to do, and we see other people as well, and they're doing these things, and we compare ourselves. So overcommitment and comparison are going to give us this feeling of guilt. This is why people always tell you, don't compare yourself, right? Comparison is even bigger than overcommitment, right? If we compare ourselves to other people, then that is going to make us feel guilty because we are not, they are, right? If we can stop comparing ourselves, let us be who we are, then that guilt can begin to go away, right? Because we shouldn't be doing anything other than what we're doing now in this moment, and we shouldn't be anybody else than who we are right now, right? The world doesn't need another person who reads a bunch of books and is super smart. That person is already sitting right next to you, right? The world needs you, somebody who can, play video games well, and just have a good time and laugh things off and, make jokes and so forth. The world needs every single different type of person in it to really be full, to be the world in its fullness. So now let's go through the exercises. We've reached that point. With the big guilt, when the big guilt comes to us, we can close our eyes if you can. And when the big guilt comes to us, we will close our eyes and feel the feeling. Why do I feel this way? I feel this way because I punched my brother-in-law in the face. Okay. Apologize in your head first. I'm sorry. Right? I'm sorry that I punched you in the face, brother-in-law. I was angry. I let my anger get the better of me. This is something that I'm working on, and I will be better in the future. Right? And that is just the most simplest, easiest exercise that you can do, is to do it in your head first. Then you can do it for real if you want to. But if you notice that, a lot of times to help the other person heal, we ask for their forgiveness, right? But we don't always need to do that. I know that sounds kind of bad. We don't always need to go to the person and apologize, right? Apologizing and forgiving, it's for us, really. It's to humble ourselves, right? And if you've already done that, then maybe there isn't a super huge need to go to the person. But the kingdom of heaven is entered 2 by 2. So it's always the best idea and the best option to go to the person and say, hey, look, I don't want to be around you. and feel like we have this enmity toward each other. I want to be like good vibes all the time. And so I just want to say that I'm sorry for that. You definitely do want to apologize. But sometimes when it's not possible, right, there's distance between you, or you know, the person has, you know, passed away or whatever it is, you know, it's not always necessary 100% of the time. Okay, now let's do the little guilt. The little guilt to let go of this. Again, you can close your eyes if you want to and get into this. A little guilt, I should be this, I should be doing that. I'm not enough here, right? What you want to do in your head, you can even do this in real life if you want, but write down on a piece of paper in your head, I should ... What are all the things that you should do, that you feel like you should be doing, and you're just not doing good? You're not a good enough, you know, person. You're not disciplined enough, right? You're not practicing your musical instrument enough. You're not reading enough, right? I should be doing this. Write it down on that piece of paper. Write all those things down. I should this, right? Once you've done that, crumple it up in a ball in your mind and throw it in the fireplace. Throw it in the fireplace in your mind, right? And then say to yourself, I'm going to let the people around me be who they are, and I'm going to celebrate how amazing those people are instead of wanting to be them. I'm going to celebrate their awesomeness instead of wanting to be them. Notice some cool things about the people around you, right? And acknowledge that. Then after that, we're going to recognize some cool things about us. I do this, and that's good with me. That's well with me. I like that I do that, right? I like this part of who I am, of my personality. I love that. And then we'll end on that. We'll end on loving ourselves, right? Because ultimately, what we're trying to do here is to remove any blocks to loving ourselves or loving somebody else or other people, everybody else. We want to remove all those blocks. And once we do, we will be in perfect alignment. So I really hope this helped you let go of your guilt. Try these exercises out. Try these exercises out whenever you get the feeling of I should, right? These negative emotions need to be a check engine light on your spirit and on yourself. So when you feel these, do these exercises. Check on yourself, check in on yourself. Be good to yourself. Be well, and I'll see you in the next video.